Hey guys, Kamikaze here, and today I'm going to be sitting down and telling a story. It's an epic tale of climate change and competition, of science and sorrow, and of dragons and death. Yes, it's the story of how I got the one show concerned about my mental health. I actually told the story on a podcast thing I did with Joel a little while ago, but unless you happen to have an audio descrambling device in your chilly hat, then you likely couldn't make out any of the details. But this story deserves to be told in all of its grandeur, so I thought I should tell it here on this channel. I've rolled up my sleeves because this is a cracking story. But it all begins back in September, a time when Corona was just a brand of beer, and the weirdest thing going on in the world at the time was the way Boris Johnson pronounced the word vegan.
I've also eaten vegan sausage rolls.
And at school, I was invited to join a competition run by my drama teacher, where over the next few weeks, you would write a 30-minute play which would be submitted to a national competition. And the winner would have their play performed by real actors at a real stage that real people could go and see with their very real eyes. And so I knew that I must enter this competition. This was the path to pro. This was the key to all my dreams. It's a really cool green key. And I knew that I had a chance of winning. I mean, I'm a playwriting god. I'm a playwriting ninja. This was the chance. But it wouldn't be easy. All across the country, thousands of teenagers aged between 14 and 17 would be taking part in this competition. And so, armed with my extensive history of writing novels...
I don't get this. What is the humans inside the beasts? Why? Why does that
It's a
exist?
fun little Kinder Surprise.
No, it's not. It's awful.
My impeccable grammar.
But now, let's get into character design.
And the knowledge that I have the same personality type as William Shakespeare himself, I entered this competition. And I threw my metaphorical chili hat in the ring. And so, we all began working on our plays. And I am about to talk a load of... about the experience. However, it was actually really good, and one of the best parts was near the start when we got to meet an actual real-life playwright. And one of the things that they recommended to help us get started was to base the entire play around an idea that you can explore through the characters and across the narrative. Like, for example, all politicians have to be corrupt to be successful was one of the examples. And so, the idea that I chose was, the more you know, the sadder you become. Which sounds depressing, but everyone's was. It wasn't the most depressing, and I don't necessarily think it's true, but I think it has its roots. I mean, there's a reason I think that a lot of people look back on their childhood fondly and wish they could go back to just being innocent and worry-free. And I just think that a lot of stress is just caused by overthinking, and a lot of the time, knowing a lot about something just makes you resent it. Joel, would you say you resent me?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And so, to demonstrate the point that knowing a lot can make you sadder, I went all the way to the extremes with my protagonist. So, my main character was called Dr. James Marana, who's top of his field in neurobiology and widely regarded as one of the most successful scientists in the world, but he's also extremely depressed. And then, for the other main character, who plays Marana's best friend, I went all the way to the other end. So basically, he's very stupid, but gormlessly happy. And he's called Kevin. And basically, the plot of the play was that Marana knew something that only a few people on the planet knew, and it was that the human race was going to go extinct in a few months. And Marana knows that there's no way to stop this threat from wiping out everyone, and it just puts him in a state of depression. And the idea is that the narrative across the play is that he eventually comes to terms with it. And a cool little detail is that Marana was named after the god of death, which doesn't mean anything or influence the plot in any way. It's just one of those cool things that writers like to throw in so that they can brag about it to their friends and be like, did you see the little symbolism I did? Oh yes, I did. I bet kids will have a great time analysing that in a few hundred years. Oh yes, I'm sure they will. Oh, and what if we put in an extended metaphor about the themes of death? Oh, that's a great idea. By the way, I like your hat. Oh, thank you very much. It's the chili hat. And although the way I've summarised the play makes it sound quite depressing, the majority of it was quite light-hearted and funny, because obviously Mirana's extremely intelligent and Kevin is the extreme opposite of that, and so their chemistry, like most of the play is just them discussing things, and it's meant to be funny. And the ending of the play is actually quite nice and brings it all full circle, because in one of the first scenes, James is invited to go swimming as sort of a reunion of old friends from university, but he declines, stating all the potential risks of swimming at sea, like respiratory illnesses and dehydration, which sort of ruins swimming a little bit for Kevin, you know, creating the theme early on of knowing more, making you sadder. But at the end, James, who's now at this point come to terms with his eventual death, decides he will go swimming, and the last scene's actually quite nice. And so that was the play I wrote. And yes, it is quite dark, it is quite depressing, but mine was by no means the most depressing one. I mean, there was some that went for even like darker themes. So I didn't feel too weird submitting it at the end. And so, fast forward now to May 2020, when COVID is just starting to enter Britain, and a monkey just stole a load of samples of COVID. Those two events are probably connected. And I finished my play, I've been working on it for a few months, everyone's finished theirs, and it's time to submit them to the competition. However, 1 week before I was about to submit them, I was also told about by my drama teacher about another competition with basically the exact same rules, except it was a local version, so it was just in the area, and only 2 or 3 schools were going to be entering it. And so he asked me if I wanted to submit my play to that one, so I did, and all was done. Then lockdown happens. And so the national competition ended up getting cancelled because of COVID, but the local one still went ahead, and I placed in the top 5. And so that was kind of the end of the playwriting journey. I mean, it was kind of a shame that something I worked quite hard on didn't end up even getting submitted to the competition, but at the same time, I never really expected to win the competition, and so even just getting top 5 in the local one was quite exciting, and I more did it for the experience of getting to write the play with other people rather than actually winning it. But still, it never got to see the light of day in the national competition. But then, fast forward again now to August of 2020, a time when Corona are in most people's bodies by this point, and scientists also somehow lost a star. It was a crazy time. A crazy time, I tell you, eh? But this level of insanity was heightened because I was alerted of another playwriting competition, this time by The One Show. It was called As You Write It, and this time, instead of actually submitting a play, what you would do is that you would submit an idea for a play. And I can't exactly remember what would happen if you won it because, spoiler alert, I did not win this one. I think your play got featured in The One Show or something, but I thought there was no point just letting all the effort of writing the play go to waste, so I entered this one as well. I described the play slightly more extensively than I have done in this video. I explained the characters and the overall story, and I submitted it. And then, about a week later, my mother received quite an interesting text message, which I will now read now. What? The message read, "Hello, thank you for submitting an entry to our As You Write It, Your Play on Stage competition on behalf of your child. We have reviewed the entry and feel that some of the content may raise a welfare concern, and we wanted to bring this to your attention in case you did not have sight of the submission and wanted to discuss the content of the entry further with the writer." That's a me! Further support and advice is available from BBC Action Line. I think they're very concerned. This does not affect the entry's chance of proceeding to the next stage of the competition. Best wishes, As You Write It himself. Oh, I can't believe we got a message from the actual As You Write It guy. What? Yeah, my play raised a welfare concern. I'm not sure whether it was actually reviewed by a person who was actually concerned, or whether an algorithm saw the words like dead or something, or like end of the human race in there and just immediately flagged it. I don't know which one's more concerning, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I've theorized about what it was that caused this. Because when I was writing for the other competition, nobody was ever like,
oh, this is a bit of a concerning thing to write.
You know, people were being encouraged to like really explore like dark ideas. And I think the reason that this one triggered a welfare concern, as they put it, is because I think this play was open to like 6 to 16. So I was just inside the top end of the bracket. So maybe they didn't take into account age, and they read this submission about the end of the human race and they're like,
this is maybe a little bit concerning for a 6-year-old to have written.
So I think that's why, because the other competition was just like 14 to 17, so obviously some adult themes are going to be explored in the plays, whereas this one, I think they were just looking for like a funny, silly play just to be featured in their show. You know, I don't think they were looking for an analysis into the psychological effects of the end of the human race. So that's the story. That is how I got the one show concerned about my mental health. And now I've decided to expand it and let my YouTube audience be concerned about my mental health. And one last thing before I end the video. Thank you everyone for 700 subscribers. I really appreciate all the support on the channel. And if you would like, I could perform the play, maybe with some friends, maybe just by myself, that might be funnier, as its own video on the channel. So comment if you want me to actually like make the play a real thing. Goodbye.